I thought this seemed like a good time of year to talk about a series of books that I read quite a lot when I was a little kid, and that is the Bailey School Kids books, more officially called The Adventures of the Bailey School Kids. So let's pay a little visit to the juvenile bookshelf, or at least what I have been able to fit on my juvenile bookshelf. They are right here. I own roughly a dozen, I think it's actually a dozen exactly, and oh boy, clearly I haven't read these in a while since they are crammed into the bookshelf. There we go. The Adventures of the Bailey School Kids were written by Dadey and Marcia Thornton Jones with illustrations by John Stephen Gurney. It was a pretty substantial, long-running series. The first one, Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots, came out in 1990. I believe this is a mid-90s reprint. And the last one came out 2006, I think. There were two coming out every year for quite a while there, and then they started to peter out towards the end. These are short chapter books for elementary school readers. Each book focuses on a certain kind of monster or creature, whether it's a literary monster or a monster from old movies or old folklore. The books are quite formulaic in that in each one, the four main kids, Eddie, Lisa, Melody, and Howie, who are very stereotypical kids in their own separate way, they meet a new individual in town, and this person is a little odd, and they start to suspect something about them. The first one that I read, or maybe it was the first one that I owned, I'm not sure, was number 32, Phantoms Don't Drive Sports Cars, and yes, this is about the Phantom of the Opera, so it makes sense that this would be the first one to catch my fancy. The four kids take a trip to the Bailey City Opera House, and there's a mysterious violinist, and there's an opera singer named Christine, and there's all kinds of things that are references to the Phantom of the Opera. It's funny the things that I remember. I read each of these books at least 3 times, I think, and I remember strange details like that Christine wears orange mums in her hair, and that the car is a Lamborghini, and the doors do that cool thing where they pop up. But I don't remember other things. It's very strange, the gaps in my memory. My favorite was always number 7 for some reason, Aliens Don't Wear Braces. It's strange to me that this one was my favorite, and I read it over and over and over again, because I didn't like aliens when I was a kid. I was terrified of them, even though I liked things with aliens in them, but the aliens were my least favorite part. But for some crazy reason, I read this book a lot, and I found it fascinating. My second favorite was one of the super specials. Super specials, I guess, because they have pages of puzzles and activities inside, activities that I didn't do because I didn't want to write in my book. But my second favorite was Mrs. Jeepers' Secret Cave, which is super special number 3. I read this one so much. I thought it was surprisingly educational, and I just thought that the illustrations in this one were very creative, and it taught you all about spelunking or spelunking. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that word, but the cave stuff and stalagmites and stalactites. Oh, look, I did do the stuff in the back. I did write in this book. I'm shocked. And I think, if I remember correctly, the one that was my third favorite was number 6, Frankenstein Doesn't Plant Petunias. And I kind of have a problem with this one because it's actually Frankenstein's monster who does the planting, but oh well. This is one where the kids take a field trip to a museum of science, and there's this guy who seems an awful lot like Boris Karloff's Frankenstein's monster. And I really liked this one because it had a really nice moment of sensitivity, and Lisa, the one who was shy and a scaredy cat, actually kind of stepped up at one point, and I really liked it. And I think it was one of the ones where the kids' teacher, Mrs. Jeepers, who they think is a vampire, has a moment of vulnerability, and the kids step in and help her, and I thought that was a really nice touch. If you're wondering how scary these books are, I would say they're really not that scary. They're generally more comedic than anything, and the monsters and mythological creatures and everything that are the focus, it was kind of a 50-50 between threatening and non-threatening. One of them is Santa Claus, one of them is Cupid, but there was one that was really scary, in my opinion, and that was number 2, Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp. I thought this one was terrifying when I was a kid. Part of it was just you know, the idea is these kids are at this camp, and there's darkness all around. I don't like darkness, and there's this monster outside, and the illustrations really didn't help with that. I thought this picture was pretty alarming, but generally scariness wasn't so much of an issue, and you can trust me when I say that, because when I was a kid, I was afraid of everything. The biggest criticism I have for these books is that they are very formulaic. It's after you've read a few, you know what's going to happen. The 4 Kids are pretty stereotypical, and the more I read them and the older I got, the more I realized that they didn't have very much depth. They never really change much. Maybe a couple of times they do something that's different. Eddie is usually taught a lesson, but by the time the next book comes around, he's forgotten that lesson that he learned. And sometimes Lisa does something brave, and you're like, oh wow, she's really advanced, but she hasn't. I will say that maybe these books weren't for everyone. I was the only person I knew who read them when I was in school, except for the boy that sat next to me in 2nd grade. He had Leprechauns Don't Play Basketball on his desk. And I still have never met anyone else who read these books, and that's kind of why I'm doing a video about them. I got an enjoyment out of them that maybe not every kid would, and I found them oddly educational and entertaining. So those are the Bailey School Kids books. Let me know if you read these books, read any of them, if you had any favorites, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!